Hello everyone, I'm Benny the Storyteller, and I'm here to let you know that not every adventure needs to be a self-sacrificing, blood-drenched, sorrowful experience. No. As a matter of fact, most of us live out our adventures in our day-to-day, accomplishing a few self-imposed quests or errands. A slice of life, if you will. Well, Mouse here is taking a break from his normal battle-hardened lifestyle to help out his fellow citizens. Even the ones who appear to need a little more help than what he can offer. Let's see what he gets up to. Normally, Moose would never be awake this early in the morning, let alone having a standard breakfast of scrambled eggs, toast, and burnt coffee, his preferred taste. Usually, he would sleep most of the day and head to the local tavern in the evening for ale, listen to far-fetched tales of wonder, or go out on his own for some light exercise of monster slaying. But today was different. He knew he needed a break from his normal lifestyle, and there was just something about the dancing dust particles in the morning sun while sipping his coffee that put him in a relaxed state of mind. To him, it represented a meditative moment which helped to remind him he wasn't alone in this world, and that today was a good day to offer some aid to the neighboring town. So, after clearing his dishes and setting them out to dry, he buckled his worn leather belt, slid into his favorite pair of fur-covered boots, then walked out into the crisp morning air. With a clunk, he locked the heavy wooden door behind himself and took a deep, refreshing breath. Stretched his limbs, then strolled off down the gravelly, dirt-covered road. The farmland on either side crept right up to the draining ditch, and the tall wild grass glistened with heavy dew while the sounds of robin and sparrows spoke of a light-hearted mystique. Reveling in this picturesque continuance, Mouse closed his eyes and tossed his hands behind his head while he walked on. But just as he was about to enter a relaxed state of flow, the ground gave out beneath him and he fell into darkness. Coming to, Mouse shook the confusion from his head as he squinted up at the bright hole that had just engulfed him. Must have been about a 10-foot drop, he thought. Luckily, he landed on some soft, muddy earth that now caked his once clean boots. As the sound of trickling water caught his ears that ran underfoot, and the smell of damp, rotting plants filled his nose. He said aloud to himself. These must be the sewers that run through the land. With his eyes now adjusting to the dark, he could start to make out tunnels running in long directions. Indeed they are, responded a voice all too close for comfort that startled Mouse to his senses as he sprung around, unsheathing his axes ready to defend himself. But no attack came. Yet before him crouched a man. At least he thought it was a man. Covered in a fur robe and draped in what appeared to be a cape and cowl made from some sort of large rodent with its tail still attached dragging behind him. Mouse could barely make out the man's bottom chin. He also held a scepter of sorts with a globe of empty water on one end, a sword at his waist, caked in filth and adorned with many odds or ends. He clearly lived down here. I need your aid, little man. Elijah has run away again. Will you help me find him? The stranger asked while waving the scepter to and fro in front of Mouse's face. Not sure what to make of this whole situation, Mouse sheathed his weapons and pondered the question, and looked back up to the hole he fell through. Whether coincidental or circumstantial, he found himself in a position to not only help someone, as he just so happened to plan on doing anyways, but to also have aid in finding a way out of this place. as he definitely wasn't leaving the way he came in. "Alright, stranger, I can help you find this Elijah? So long as you point me in the direction out of here, we have a deal."
Indeed.
Just then, the sewerman stood abruptly, pointed the scepter, and yelled for Eli, then took off at a jog. Mouse followed quickly in pursuit as the dirty water splashed with every step, once again wishing he'd worn a different pair of boots. And as the pace quickened, Mouse took note of an opening up ahead that began to grow. Not too soon, he thought, as the stranger's stench from running ahead was overtaking Mouse's nostrils with every heaving intake of breath, when they came to a slowing halt, just a few paces away from the aforementioned opening. It was a round, tube-like room with water flowing at the bottom. Other tunnels partitioned this way and that around its rim, and a sparse overgrown grate at the top that allowed a few bits of sunlight rays to dance about its otherwise dark interior. But Moose couldn't see any out-of-place shapes, let alone another person. What was this rodent-enveloped stranger playing at? As the two of them crouched within the large porthole, he whispered, "There," pointing out to the middle of the room. Following his finger, Mouse squinted into the haze and spotted what appeared to be a small goldfish floating about as if swimming through water, sparkling in and out of the sun rays. What sort of magic is this, Mouse wondered.
"Yes, Elijah, my best friend. Always playing tricks, making me chase him down."
Mouse shook his head and didn't quite understand, but sighed, then offered a question.
"So, what now?" "Element of surprise. You catch him, bring him to me."
"Surprise? Me?" Mouse pondered for just a moment before the sewerman grabbed hold of Mouse's back and tossed him with tremendous force at Elijah.
"Grab him!"
he shouted. Not knowing what else to do and damning the situation he put himself into, Mouse focused on Elijah, and as the wind hollowed past his ears, he quickly clasped his hands around the tiny and surprised little trickster. Tucking his head and knees, he landed on the other side of the room in a different tunnel, rolling to a stop with the goldfish ramming around inside his hands.
"Very good, little man,"
shouted the stranger, who took one giant leap and closed the distance to stand before him. Then, pointing the scepter at Mouse's hands, he muttered an incantation, and with a slosh, Elijah popped back into the globe of water at the end. Thanking Mouse, he offered a hand and helped him to his feet. Took out a few gnarled pieces of silver, a small knot of wood, a human tooth, and handed them over, before bowing, pointing towards the end of the tunnel, and jumping out of view with a before disappearing into the darkness. For a second time, Moose shook his head and took a deep, confused breath, swearing it would be a long time before changing up his daily routine again. Helping his fellow neighbors would have to wait. So he ambled on through and eventually found an exit from the humid underground. Breaking out to the now harsh daylight, he took yet another deep breath and looked down at his favorite pair of boots with dismay. "Ruined," he said to himself with disappointment. Then looking about, he turned towards home, and although each step initially felt heavy with regret, they lightened as he went on, feeling better about himself that, as confusing as the whole situation was, he did help someone rejoin with their best friend. And that had to count for something. That's it for this week, folks. I hope you enjoyed this tale of the lost. Be sure to come back next week for more stories, characters, and illustrations. Farewell for now.